And we're at that point now. We're 2 full seasons in where, we've had the full cycle of weather here in Atlanta, everything from the bunker settling to the greens softening up. And then, now the texture is more dependent on the superintendent than it was the sod that they laid down. I think there's all features of this golf course. And I tell you what, the rough, like I said, it's green. It's greener. Usually it has this kind of like burnt green look to it, almost like a fatigue color, like in a military shop, like an old pair of cargo pants that have been sitting on the shelf there for like 30 years. And this year it is a vibrant green, which is bad news for guys that miss the fairway. And if you don't like green, there's going to be plenty of it on the greens, and there's going to be plenty of it in those green surrounds where there's closely mown areas.
At Mayo Experience.
This is the final word on the Tour Championship from Eastlake in Atlanta. Keith Stewart from ReadTheLine.com is there on the grounds to bring us all the information, including a new playoff format for 2 years from now, correct?
2028, Pat. Yes. Greetings from Atlanta, Georgia. It is what you'd expect. It's warm outside today. I sit here overlooking the practice putting green as guys are putting in their last preparations for the Tour Championship.
You did not touch Scottie, correct? No touching. Don't touch Scottie. Can't touch Scottie.
I can sit here with 100% certainty and tell you that I did not touch his hands, feet, or his mouth today, yes. But I can tell you that I've seen his feet firmly planted on the practice range, his hands grasping that club, and, he was having a nice little practice session today, and I could hear his mouth. So for all intents and purposes, I think the number one player in the world is ready to roll and get after that silver cup.
Oh, see, this is good news. Well, not good news for me because I'm not betting on Scottie Scheffler. So the healthier he is, the worse it will probably turn out for me. I do want to let everyone know, smash the like and sub to Mayo Media Network. Keith and I are not going anywhere. We're going to move the show to Mondays during the fall swing to make sure that we have all of the golf coverage that we want during that time. I know football is going on, but that doesn't mean we can't bet on golf at the same time. Additionally, Keith, if you are around next week, maybe we do some sort of super mega year-in review show where we give out awards, bring on Feinberg. Who knows what we're going to do? I'm not done talking about golf, even though this tournament is not the most fun.
Pat, you set it up, and I'll be there. I love mixing it up with Jeff, and whatever surprises await, I'll do my best to be prepared, my friend.
And if people got my newsletter blast on Tuesday, they saw there are now memberships at the Mayo Media Network YouTube channel, where if you want to watch some shows in advance, we have like 5 or 6 of them in the coffer right now that you can go get. AFC win totals, win total drafts, strategy shows. It's all in there. When Michael Kim returns, I'm going to record that. That'll probably go in the members feed until it goes public. But if you're one of those people that don't want to wait 2 weeks in order to watch a show when it's already done, you can watch it all on the members feed. It's going to be the same way in season as well for both this show during golf season, the spread show during football season, that if you want to watch it on Tuesday night, you can, or else you have to wait till midnight, like 5 hours later. But some people like to watch it that night, Keith. They want to support the channel. This is what I'm doing to raise funds to do more of that like YouTube golf type stuff and different types of content and putting it directly back in. So I'm hoping people support the channel.
What's the tariff on all of this?
Well, I'll find out once I get the bill on all of it, but I think it's like $15 a month US, and you'll get a bunch of extra shows.
All right.
And priority in the chat window, which is always nice for Sunday Night Live and the Cut Sweat Show.
Priority in the chat window is advantageous.
Well, it'll be good unless the only people that buy these memberships are those bots that put in all the spam. That would be bad.
The bots have been all over golf lately. 4 million no laying up followers seems a little egregious.
That was actually my one question. Well, not my one question. My first question for Michael Kim was going to be like, hey, did the PGA buy you a bunch of followers? And he's going to be like, I have no idea. I just woke up one day and I had a bunch. But he got a big boost over the summer.
He did. He and I think Dan Rappaport, I heard, and No Laying Up, they all went well over 4 million.
Is Dan on site this week? Have you seen him?
I have not seen Dan. I've seen some other scratch personnel. I've seen Alan and Addie and a couple other folks, but I have not seen Dan yet. What's today? Tuesday? He would be here by now usually, but who knows? I don't know. He wasn't here for Big Brian this morning.
Maybe he's off cutting another rap album.
I no comment.
Yeah, ask him. Tell him Pat is asking about it. Like, you gonna drop another one on us? Don't leave me hanging here, bro.
I'm going full Fauci on this, and I'm taking the 5th. I am not going down that road. That just we don't need to promote that.
Okay, that's fair. Tell us about the playoffs, the new playoffs. Do you like the new playoffs?
I do like what they're setting up for in the new playoffs, and there's a lot to unpack there, because at the end of the day, the fans were asking for match play, right, for years. I mean, what's it? The WGC in 2023 was the last time that we got into any sort of match play event, official match play event on the PGA Tour outside of the international team competitions, whether it be the President's Cup or the Ryder Cup. And now they're coming at you. Well, be careful what you wish for, because you're going to get 7 rounds of match play over 2 weeks starting in 2028 to kind of culminate the season in this 2-week Tour Championship kind of paradigm shift to the close of the season. And I don't know, I'd push back to you and I would say, when you first heard about it and you thought it was 2 weeks of match play, do you feel like that was like an overcorrection to what was being asked for? Or I don't know, I'm still trying to process all of this, but I think that I'm just curious what you think too.
I always think that match play is not good for TV. It can be if everything breaks right, but it could lead to some horrible broadcasts. It was always my problem with the Dell match play. Like, yeah, I liked it, but when you looked at the ratings and the interest by the time Sunday came around, when it's following 2 guys walking to each of their shots, like, it's not the most interesting TV product. I'll throw that out there. Like in Ryder Cup, it's awesome because there's 12 versus 12 going on. And if you're still paying attention to the one guy on the course versus the one guy on the course, that means it's down to those 2 guys. So that's very compelling. Other than that, like, it can get bad quickly, is my only issue with it.
Well, it seems like they're trying to flood the market with as many matches as they can, which should in the end promote a better TV product. I guess my reaction to it is this, and it's threefold. Number one, I think it's a massive engagement opportunity. I think that the fans have been asking year after year about more match play events, having a match play event, having more match play on the PGA Tour, and they're giving it to them. That's a good thing. Number two is that the production possibilities, what you talked about right there. In the past, there's been some strife in putting together like a cohesive sort of TV program when it comes to match play. Flooding the market with all of these group matches like you had seen back in the day in the WGC on the Wednesday when the golf course was filled with matches is a good thing. And I also think that, you could start to lean into the way that modern golf fans consume golf. And that is a little bit of the YouTube golf. Like, you're even venturing into that world, Pat. So I think the second part of the opportunity here is that the production capabilities and the way that they produce TV coverage for golf there can be a huge paradigm shift there. And I think that that's a good thing for coverage. And I think that having a smaller footprint for TV, I think these last 2 weeks, these match play events and the venues that they spoke about are really, if there's 1,000 people there, I'd be surprised. I think these are going to be made for TV events, Pat. And I think they can start to switch the way with which they're producing these things, and they can make them a lot more compelling, a la what people like to watch on YouTube with just various people of all skill levels playing golf, but they are a produced theater operation versus, trying to chase the golf ball around or the match around the golf course. And the third thing I'd say is that I think it kind of shows the future mindset of where Brian Rolapp and the team is going. The idea that we're designing competitions based upon made for TV access, I think is different than the way we've done this for a long time. So when you look at it that way, the engagement opportunity, the production paradigm shift, and then of course this new future TV mindset, that's where I'm at on all of this. And I think it's a great thing for the PGA Tour.
Now, hopefully, because you were so positive about it, they'll get your video back. There you go. I was negative. They cut your video. You were positive. You got the video back. So I'm able to see you again. Hello there again, Keith. I think that, okay, so the way that it's structured, there's still going to be 3 playoff events. The first one is to finalize who actually gets to the final, was it 32 players? It's going to be a 90-player stroke play event. That will really be the final. The first playoff event is the final stroke play tournament. And then there's going to be match play the next week where everyone plays in groups. And then the final, which I believe is a single elimination match play bracket. So in theory, I really like this idea. I like that they're going to be able to have everyone, it seems, for 2 weeks at a time. And you're not just going to arbitrarily lose Scottie Scheffler because he had like a bad 9 holes, because that's the worst possible thing that can happen. Not that you need to like rig it so all the stars go through, but you don't want to have some of these guys show up and then they're just gone outside of the very last week. I like what you're saying about the TV production aspect of it. I love the fact that they can go to really cool courses at some of the venues, like you said, they talked about, whether it be Pine Valley or LA Country Club, and utilize some places that maybe aren't in the South in August. That can always be nice. The one saving grace, I think, for all of this is that there was nothing really different. In fact, it seemed lesser than for the FedEx Cup versus the majors, or hell, even the players or the signature events like I've talked about. Making this its own unique format with a champion, I don't know if it's going to be successful or not, but at least distinguishes itself enough outside of the norm that we see in normal golf that people may take it seriously, as, especially if you don't always get the best guy winning. And like 2 out of 3 years, like Billy Horschel works his way in and he wins, like, oh, he's a match play specialist. Like it becomes like a talking point about it, that it could elevate its status in that way instead of simply being like the 9th most important thing of the year.
One of the sentiments that kind of rang through to me this morning was that the idea that after the season finale, in the top 90 that make it there, they earn their card for the championship series for the following year, for 2029. And then there's the cutoff to the top 32 for the 2 weeks after that. It was made very clear to me that, well, it seemed to me very clear that they were drawing a line in the sand, that at the end of that event, whoever was winning and was ahead on points for the year was going to be your season-long champion. And that this was like an extracurricular activity, and that it would get its own sort of purse, designation, title, trophy, etc. And basically, they were adding something on to the end of the season that the fans had been calling for.
Agreed. And it lines up perfectly with allowing potentially some of the bigger names from Liv to be back in the playoffs. That in 2 years' time, Bryson and Rahm and Cam Smith and hell, Ted Lasso, who just won last week on Liv, maybe he finds his way into these events. That in 2 years' time, I'm feeling like that's all going to be resolved. And then you get even more brand power as a part of this potential match play.
Ted Lasso, I like that. I was calling him the poor man's Chris Gotterup.
Yeah, you could have just called him Will Sasso, former Mad TV superstar, and once had a feud with Bret Hart in WCW.
Hey, there was a lot of interesting questions in the Q&A part of the press conference when it comes to Live players and whether or not they'd be welcome back. Roll-Up certainly set the tone for the fact that there was not going to be another one of these Brooks packages available. Now, I guess, maybe if there's a $15 million, charity donation by Mr. Rahm, that things may change. But it seemed to me that anyone that wants to come back here on the PGA Tour and get involved in this thing in 2028 better do it sooner rather than later. And there certainly isn't a lot of Bryson talk. We'll put it that way.
I can see that. Rahm is probably the big get for them, right? Is that sort of the sentiment? But I mean, that could also be the sentiment among media members as well. We do know as a draw, there is no bigger fish out there than Bryson, even if he's not necessarily my cup of tea. That, if I could see him 8 times a year on the PGA Tour, I would really like that. Like 4 majors, 4 other events, that would be the perfect amount of Bryson in my life. Do I want to see him every single week playing in this championship series? Not really. I think it would be rather grating. And I think that he understands his brand well enough that he probably doesn't want to do that. But not having him involved in the PGA Tour, if there is no Live, it seems like you're leaving money on the table. And they like money.
There were a couple things that were said in that press conference that lead me to believe things will go in the other direction.
Like what? Yeah. Tell me about this.
So like number one, the use of the word meritocracy. So meritocracy means that you're going to earn your way onto that championship series. Now, that's not to say that it might be different for some rather than others, but it seems to me like going the Brooks route and having to earn the points with which to get on there, which if Rob doesn't act soon, then that puts him in the 2029 Championship Series kind of season. Because it said, as they said, unless you win a couple of those Challenger Series events, and I don't know how, I mean, Rahm would go do it and get the points, and then does he try to win a couple of those and get instantly promoted? I'm not quite sure. It'd certainly be good for the PGA Tour and the Challenger Series if he did. But the idea of using the word meritocracy over and over again, and then the allusion to the 3 young 24-year-olds or 24 and under-year-olds that won in back-to-back weeks to close the season on the PGA Tour. I thought that was an interesting comment as well. I thought that was kind of a poke at Liv, because to the Tom McKibbins and the Lasassos and those guys of the world, hey, we've got our own young guns here, and they're already winning, and they're going to be on the Championship Series, and that's kind of a cool thing. So if I were you, like, I'd come sooner rather than later. I thought, to me, those were 2 kind of like subtle hints to what the norm is going to be here looking forward.
Well, I do think that if you're trying to build up 2 tours underneath the same brand, one clearly being more elevated than the other, having a lot of those guys, even year one, on the Challenger Series instead of the Champion Series does go a long way to build that credibility, especially if Rahm has to play on it. He's like, oh, I won 3 events in a row. Now I'm instantly promoted. Like that would be cool.
It would definitely be cool. And I think he's heading in that direction.
Yeah, because Jeff and I,
on the sentiment of what I heard today.
Well, Jeff and I were speaking because he was here this week about Rahm and like what the path is for him. Like Hatton probably is going to go play on the DP World Tour. That's where he originally came from, and try to work his way back that way. And a lot of people have been making that assumption about Jon Rahm as well, but he never played on the DP World Tour as a full-time player. Like he'd go play the Spanish Open and the ones that the PGA guys went and played. Like, by all accounts, yes, he is from Spain, but he is an American at this point. He went to Arizona State. He's married to an American. He lives in America. He's had 4 kids in the United States. Like, he's going to want to play on the PGA Tour.
I mean, a big player in all of this, not a big player in the golf world, but a big player in all of this was the DP World Tour, when they said, we're going to follow our own rules, and we're not going to let you guys bounce back and forth between live. And you got to figure Jon Rahm wants to play on the Ryder Cup next year at Adair Manor. So that also kind of pushes him towards this direction of figuring out what he has to do. I think we're going to learn a lot in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The tour may try to do their best to hold some things off until after the President's Cup as far as big announcements go. But I think the rumor mill is going to be circling very strongly for the next couple of weeks, especially when we've got the one event in North Carolina, but we've got a bunch of weeks off. And as we've both seen over the last few years, you and I, when there's weeks off in golf, that's when the news starts cranking up. It's like it's almost better when there's a competition, but the rumor mill seems to come to the surface and actually become more fact than fiction when these guys don't have a place to play for the week.
Agreed. I'm wondering how many of these, like if let's say Liv folds tomorrow, or Liv 1.0 folds, it seems like it's already kind of folded. Even Bryson kind of said goodbye to it. Although I watched the end of Liv because I was sweating a Rahm ticket in which he blew, which I couldn't believe it. But Bryson said, he's excited for things to come. So maybe Bryson's on the other side of this. The rest of the guys, they're probably not sticking around. The move would be at the President's Cup. The big announcement was like, oh yeah, these guys can play to get back on tour. They got to play the fall series right now. You're going to see Rahm in Bermuda or something like that.
Rahm in Bermuda would be awesome.
Good
right next, pair him up with Brian Gay.
Yeah, the threesome would be Rahm, Brian Gay, and Takumi Kanaya. There we go.
Camilo Villegas. We get the past champs, and then we'll throw Rahm in there. Featured groups. Excellent content. Yes,
I do think that the match play has its merits. And like I said, going this route has the ability to distinguish this event, which is pretty bland, pretty milquetoast across the board. It seems like an afterthought of the season, into something that, if done right and performs well, like the outcomes go as the most entertaining things possible, then in year 1, year 2, if that happens, then it could really catch on. If not, then it's not really any different than what we're seeing right now. It's just a part of the year where no one cares, A, about sports, and B, really about this part of the golf season.
I mean, I'll go back to what I was alluding to earlier. It's a massive opportunity for the wagering industry as well. The idea that all of these matches are out there and that we can wager on them head to head, and it's actually part of the event. I think it makes it easier for people to learn how to bet on golf. And I think that's a good thing. I I've said this time and time again, when you have opportunities like TGL and there's just two teams and it's easy to figure out like it is football, then I think that helps get more people involved in what it is you and I do. And we talk in our previews and all the fun that we get to have, every Tuesday afternoon when we're recording these shows. I think it's going to add, it's going to present an opportunity for the tour to create like different storylines that they've relied on for so many years. And that's going to be a bit of a paradigm shift when it comes to the production. I'm super excited about that part of it.
And back to your TV production point, that I saw that I believe it is this evening or maybe tomorrow that the NFL Films crew was going around at the BMW Championship. They had mic'd up 4 players, including Wyndham Clark, as a part of that. I watched the one that they did at the Players Championship. It was Gotterup. I can't remember who the other guys were. It's how much it's stuck in my mind. But I really enjoyed the hour that I watched it. Like, very rarely do I go out of my way to watch PGA Tour produced content. And that I thought was riveting. So I'm really excited for this one. If they can get that sort of access to this match play event, especially in the final week, like, that is a different way to present golf, a better way to present golf. Obviously, you're going to watch it in real time, but having the ability to cut that up and make it a TV package and something that's actually entertaining to watch with real stories, because you'll have known the outcome at this point, I think that's better than Full Swing and all those other things.
Well, Pat, I do have to make a correction there. It's not a PGA Tour produced product. It's an NFL Films produced product, right?
Yes.
I'm saying that more as a PSA than I am here to correct you. I know you know who recorded it, but at the end of the day, that's another future mindset key right there, is that bringing in somebody other than PGA Tour Studios to create content in a manner with which is different than what we've become traditionally used to is again, like, I like to think that I can come up with more words, but they're drawing a line in the sand, Pat. Like, they are saying, like, these are the things that we're going to lean into. And I think that that's very exciting for the consumer. These types of changes, one, they're listening, you get match play. 2, the smaller footprint makes the TV more exciting. And then 3, this is the road that we're going down. So that way we can earn more media dollars, because there's going to be a lot of competition for that in the next 5 years when the NFL goes out for their TV package. I mean, they brought the right man in for the job. Whether or not this particular format that they're rolling out, that the people I'm sure have rehashed time and time again, is 100% successful, it will be determined. But for right now, if you just look at this thing from 30,000 feet, the tour is actually changing the way that they think. And I am sure that you and I couldn't ask for anything else.
I would completely agree with that. The only thing that I want from this match play is some sort of staggered payout structure where we don't just end up with 1 versus 2 as the final group. I want to see some sort of incentive for 3 versus 4, 4 versus 5, just so we have more golf on the screen at one time. That's what I want for the final day. That was always my biggest issue with match play, is that we would get there to the final day, you'd have 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4, and that's it. And if you had 2 blowouts, it was bad watching.
Well, maybe this didn't come through in social media, or, I didn't really explain it in depth, but the first week of the Tour Championship is 32 players.
And it's a group.
It's 8 groups of 4, so it's like the start of the World Cup. Everyone's going to play 3 matches. The top 2 remaining, or the top 2 players in those 8 groups, are the 16 that advance to the next week. Now, those 16 guys are going to play 4 matches, Pat. So on Sunday, you're going to have 2 undefeated guys, number 1 and 2, and then you're also going to have number 15 versus number 16. So there's going to be, of the 16 guys that are there, there's going to be 8 matches on TV, assuming they use the traditional TV windows: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
And that somewhat corrects the issue that you're talking about, that it gets difficult. Like, golf tournaments are great until they get to like the final 2 holes. Like, even the BMW is that way. It was like, oh man, like, and then, oh, there's only 4 guys left on the golf course. We have to fill time while they're walking. Meanwhile, you normally do that because there's guys all over the golf course. Well, it's brutal to watch something like a 36-hole final in the men's U.S. Amateur because there's just 2 guys out there on a Sunday. That is difficult TV to produce. Now you're still going to have all 16 guys on the golf course. So when you give that block of TV time, there's going to be much more golf with which to watch, much more golf with which to wager on. There's going to be way more outcomes. And I think that the more outcomes that we have on a week-to-week basis, whether it's 36-hole cuts, whether it is 8 matches going on at one time, Like, that's the direction that we want to head. It's no different than the red zone. And now you're going to get, golf's version of the red zone on a Sunday afternoon for 2 weeks in a row in August.
And maybe they can have a special like halftime show where like the good guys come out because they're involved with the tour now, and they can have, I don't know, an Oklahoma drill with the best women's football team in the country.
Further proof, Pat, that there is a low barrier for entry to be a content creator on YouTube.
Hey, people, listen, they're sponsoring a PGA event. Like, they are a legitimate big deal.
I think they found out this week how big a deal they are.
They
really did.
That is the one problem when you do have a lot of eyeballs on you and something goes wrong. See, Keith, that's why I'm not the biggest podcaster in the world. I just don't want that heat. That is the only reason why.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both. That's why I'm hiding down here in Atlanta. Boy, oh boy. Like I said, there's a low barrier for entry at times for some of these jobs. And, let's just hope everyone learned a valuable lesson there.
Did you know there's a version of your home that you haven't even lived in yet, where the rooms actually feel finished? And more importantly, the sun isn't blasting you in the face at 6 a.m? Blasting in the face at 6 a.m. Don't know what you're up to, but the sun will get you. That's what it'll do. It'll wake you up for the day, and it'll be awful. Everyone's had those blinds that drive you insane. They're crooked, one side rolls up higher than the other, and you live with them for way longer than you should because replacing blinds feels like a hassle. Blinds.com actually makes it incredibly simple. You can customize your window coverings, get samples shipped to your door fast and free, and even add professional measurement and installation. They've covered more than 15 million windows over 30 years, so you know what they're doing. Right now, Blinds.com is giving my listeners an exclusive $50 off when you spend $500 or more. Just use code PATMAYO at checkout. Limited time offer, rules and restrictions apply. See Blinds.com for details. I started taking creatine because I'm working out consistently, and if it's something I'm going to use every day, I want to know I'm actually getting the highest quality product. You should too. That's why I use, and you should, Momentous Signature Spec Creatine. Creatine's already one of the most researched supplements out there, supporting strength, power, lean muscle growth, recovery, and health. Even cognitive performance, which, in my elder age, I actually need at this point. But Momentous has taken the quality side to a whole nother level. Signature Spec Creatine is manufactured in a pharmaceutical facility using reverse osmosis water purification, and put through an expanded 6-stage testing process with 4 independent agencies. That means 10 times fewer impurities, tighter heavy metal limits, and plus PFAS and microplastic screening. All great stuff. And the ultra-fine powder actually mixes easily without those gritty clumps that you see those weirdos at the gym have, so it's simple for me to work it in to my everyday routine. That's the Momentous Standard. Try Momentous Signature Spec Creatine at livemomentous.com and use code PATMAYO for up to 35% off your entire first order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code PATMAYO for 35% off. August is a great time to hit reset before the fall starts getting crazy, and that includes finally replacing some of the stuff in your closet you've probably been wearing for, decades. Anyway, way too long. That's where Quince comes in. Quince is all about fewer but better prices, premium everyday staples without luxury brand markup. You can get their organic cotton tees, Mongolian cashmere sweaters, premium denim, or tailored chinos starting at just $60. Everything is designed to last, and because Quince works directly with ethical factories, you're getting prices 50 to 80% less than similar brands. I got Quince stuff all in my regular rotation now because A, it fits well, B, feels high-end, and C, is easy. These are the basics you can wear all the time without ever thinking about it. I use the stuff, you should too. Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers. Go to quince.com/mayo. Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/mayo. What is going on down at the course? Tell me about the course. We had some renovations a few years ago. Is this the first time in PGA history where we've had 3 Zoysia fairwayed events in a row? I can't recall it ever happening before.
I'd couple that with saying we've had 5 par 70 scorecards in a row. It's probably the first time that those two things have certainly happened together. Yeah, the Zoysia's everywhere. I've been to a bunch of these. I've been pre Andrew Green renovation, and then I've been post Andrew Green renovation. It's a great week in the golf industry. There's a lot of executives here. Obviously, there's been announcements, it seems like, every year by the commissioner or the CEO over the last few that have impacted, what you and I do and how we cover it and the schedule and who's playing. The golf course is as green as I have ever seen it down here this time of year. And I know they've received a certain amount of rain, but you have to think that if you know things about agronomy and when courses go through renovations, it takes a couple of years for the grow in to kind of like take hold. And we're at that point now. We're 2 full seasons in where, we've had the full cycle of weather here in Atlanta, everything from the bunker settling to the greens softening up. And then, now the texture is more dependent on the superintendent than it was the sod that they laid down. I think there's all features of this golf course. And I tell you what, the rough, like I said, it's green. It's greener. Usually it has this kind of like burnt green look to it, almost like a fatigue color, like in a military shop, like an old pair of cargo pants that have been sitting on the shelf there for like 30 years. And this year it is a vibrant green, which is bad news for guys that miss the fairway. And if you don't like green, there's going to be plenty of it on the greens, and there's going to be plenty of it in those green surrounds where there's closely mown areas.
So either you want accuracy mavens or guys that can dig it out of that deep rough, like a Rory.
And if they're going to dig it out of the deep rough, they better be doing it 30 yards in front of the accuracy mavens. They better. And they better be able to handle these chipping areas because the greens are super, super fast. Now, we're going to get some heavy rain over the first 2 days of the golf tournament. We're going to get a smattering on Wednesday, but they're looking at over half an inch of rain with storms on Wednesday afternoon. On Friday afternoon, it looks like we're going to get some more of that. Then in the weekend, there's just a chance here or there. There's not going to be much wind. The golf course is going to get softer, but right now the guys are talking about the greens are really, really fast. They're in really good condition. And like I said, the golf course is extremely lush.
Do you think they'll move up the tee times on Friday if the forecast stays like this to try to get Friday in, or do they just pound it all into Saturday? There's only 30 guys. You can get them in the right window.
So I was talking to Gary Young, and he is one of the head officials of the PGA Tour. And I said, you have a flexible group this week. He goes, we're going to need it. And then we talked about a couple of other things. But if you remember last year, they moved the tee times up on Friday to avoid storms. They like their TV windows on the PGA Tour. And 30 guys isn't the hardest thing in the world to get around. But if that storm rolls through like it looks like it's going to, the spike on the radar is a very short window of heavy, heavy rain. Trying to get the guys back out on the golf course after that with similar playing conditions. Again, that's the whole thing that it comes down to is that, sometimes on a day where it's dry and it looks nice out and they go to preferred lies before the storms come through because they have to prepare just in case. Because if the storms come through and the place floods, then the guys that are playing after that and the conditions, it all has to be a fair situation. So I think you're going to see them manipulate the tee times a little bit over the first 2 days if the forecast remains the same. So if you're playing the live markets or DFS or whatever, I would be prepared.
Skill set wise at this course, you mentioned, hit the fairways, don't get in that rough, super fast greens. Do you think that was in play last year? And I don't know if it was because of the conditions or because the rough was grown out so much. But historically here over the 3 years previous, guys were hitting driver off the tee like 85 to 90% of the time. And last year it dipped back down to 75%. And we saw a huge spike in driving accuracy a year ago. It was up around 67%. And even with that 67%, the 5-year average is still right around 58%. So it was a huge boost, a little bit of a drop in driving distance, a little bit drop in driver usage, but a huge boost in driving accuracy, which really pumped up the amount of approach shots from beyond 200 yards. So to take a look at it right now for some context, if we go to betsportsgolf.com and use the rabbit hole and just click on the course and use the approach shot distribution, you see the total shots from 200 plus yards last year was 34%, which was up from like 25% years before, and the PGA Tour average of like 22%. That's almost like a 50% increase over the tour average of these super long shots. So either you want to have some driving distance and guys who can hit the fairway, or dudes who smack their long irons.
If the golf course remains firmish like it is right now, and there's an opportunity to club down off the tee and go for placement because you're going to get more rollout. If this thing gets drenched like it looks like it's going to, and it has like 4 of the last 5 years, then I think guys are going to be pulling out drivers because the ball won't roll out. And if you can hit fairways, the ball's going to stop, and then you're going to have a much closer approach. So I think a lot of that's going to be weather dependent. And I think that that's what you're looking at. I would love to correlate what you just said with the weather forecast, because I believe last year it was somewhat on the dry side for what it can be down here. There have been years down here where it just pours every single day. And there have been a couple of years where the conditions have been somewhat mild when it comes to the rain, and there's been a little bit more rollout. If there's going to be more rollout, these guys are going to lay back and let the ball kind of roll out and play for the fairways. A majority will, which will skew those numbers. The Rorys are still going to pound driver everywhere, and I think that that's the play this year. I think if I'm looking for one of the like super separation Stewart skills for the week, I think I would definitely go with power, and the second one would be short game. I think that when people look at strokes gain data and they're not really sure how strokes gain data comes about, it's how you gain against the rest of the field. Well, it's a small number of players here. So one, it's tougher to gain on the beaters that are always at the bottom of the field. Like you have 30 elite guys here. The second thing is, and that's one of the reasons why, if you look across the board, there aren't huge average gains by the top 10s over the last like 4 or 5 years. Forget the renovation for a second, just say in general. But when you look at that strokes gain number for around the green, it's always very low. It's very difficult here around the greens. It only got more difficult after Andrew Green because he added more closely mown areas with grainy Bermuda. And Green loves these kind of like deep, difficult bunkers. And the sand hadn't really been settled for a number of seasons. And hopefully it is more and more so now. But that airy sand and those deep bunkers with the steep faces that are greenside, that makes things a little difficult. And then it's tough to gain on just 30 guys. So don't be misled by those numbers. I think it's a huge factor that you're looking at power and you're looking at short game this week. And I think those are two separating skills on the Stewart report for you.
Well, let's try to bet on some guys, see if we can win some money. Both coming off a week where we hit a winner, Keith. It's the first time that's happened all year.
No, Tom Kim, right?
Did we both have Tom Kim?
I had Tom Kim.
No, I had Tom Kim, so we're good. Yeah, so right. Twice. It's now happened twice this year that we've done this.
Hey, it's really 4 of us because my boys Joe and John over at Preferred Lines, those guys both went with Wyndham as well. Wyndham made a lot of sense last week, and I'm glad it was a good community win. The more people that win, the better all over social media. I'm all for it.
So I have 3 bets in, but the one I wanted to discuss with you before we really get into it was, why am I not just running it back with Wyndham Clark at 18-1?
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, so you know what? That will be my. So here are the 4 bets for the week. Wyndham Clark 18-1, Sam Burns 20-1. You can get that number under the PME exclusives tab at coolbet.com. See Kim 28-1 and Tom Kim 66-1 with 3 places. If you just get inside that top 3, we're paying off the week anyway. But I do think that although he's not the power guy, so I tried to take 2 power guys that if they hit fairways, they're super live, both with short games and both can really putt, especially on Bermuda. I mean, hell, Clark has already won twice this year on Zoysia, and now we've had him on a bent fairway or bent greens and Bermuda greens. I trust his putting. Burns had a terrible putting week last week. Wouldn't expect that to continue week over week when you're one of the best guys on tour. And then I flipped the other way with Siwoo and Tom Kim. Like, give me guys who are awesome with accuracy, awesome with long irons, and maybe this is the one time a year they can make some putts. But they both have short games, which is helpful.
I love being scorched by Sammy Burns, myself and my daughter. But doesn't bother you that his driver's been a little wonky for a couple of weeks?
It does, but if anything is going to be wonky for him, like between driving and approach play, because even his approach play, like he did everything very poorly last week except approach play. Oh. I've seen Sam Burns be, I don't want to say an elite driver, but a very good driver of the golf ball for multiple periods over the course of his career. We all know that he's probably the best putter on tour. And his short game comes and goes, but it's usually, he's typing stuff in, he's got 30 seconds, and boom, he's coming all the time with the short game when we need him the most. It's the irons that have been the biggest problem. And the irons have been the best on tour of anyone in this field over the past 3 months, past 4 months. You have to go back to the past 8 months to find the period where he wasn't. The fact that he's actually doing that It would be the first time he's ever showed up to East Lake where that has been something as a positive for him, not something he needs to overcome. So I don't need him to be out there leading the field and driving. I need him not to be one of the bottom 5 guys in driving. Let the rest of the game do the work. And the past 3 times that he's played at East Lake, he's been very good.
To be clear, when I talked about the separating skills, those are the ones that are kind of like, as I look at the way people are practicing, as I look at the golf course conditions, as I walk around and just look at the agronomy and the design features and all of that, those I think are the little edge points. Approach play is everything here. This is an approach play examination. You know, I wrote about it for our Golf Digest article, and I just said, you know, like, I think top 10 for Colin Morikawa because he could do that on his iron game alone. Like, if nothing else shows up, Colin Morikawa with 30 guys he's one of the best iron players in the field. He could be in the top 10 and putt average. You know, probably even lose strokes on the greens, lose strokes chipping. He'll put it in fairways, and with his iron game, he'll be in the top 10. So I feel very strongly that Sam Burns and the way that he's improved his iron game is one of the reasons I keep going back to the well there. He's definitely under strong consideration for me, but I started with Wyndham, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that once these guys get hot and you keep removing players, that I've said this time and time again, this is the 20th edition, but in 19 editions of the FedEx Cup playoffs, 12 times we've had a repeat winner. Now, of those 12, 5 of them have been the last 2. And it's happened twice in the last 5 years. Victor did it in 23, and then Pat Cantley did it back in 22, where they win the last 2, they run off with the Silver Cup, and they're like, hey, thank you all very much. And everyone's kind of like looking around like, what just happened? Right? They're like, no, yeah, Victor Hovland just smoked the field on the back 9 at Sunday at Olympia Fields, and he came to East Lake, did the same thing, and then he's gone. Right? Like, that's the type of scenario I see coming for Wyndham. And I don't see Wyndham holding back. You know, like, he's got the power, he has the short game, and man, the bonus putting is like to die for.
He's played here twice, and he's been very good in both those starts.
Yes.
And I
think 3rd and 8th.
Yeah, 3rd and
right?
8th in his 2 starts. And you know, most of the time he doesn't make it to the Tour Championship. But this is very clearly the best he's ever been playing coming in. So he was the last guy on the list because I sniffed around with Morikawa. Then his odds started to tank. I looked at Goddard pretty bigly too because I think that it would be – there's a few fun scenarios here, and we'll vote on Player of the Year next week when we do like our all-star foursomes, that kind of thing. But I was trying to rack my mind of like who could win Player of the Year that's not Wyndham Clark at this point, because I think he is the overwhelming favorite. Maybe the players don't like him. Maybe the players don't vote for him. And they just give it to Scottie if Scottie ends up winning. Like, oh, they both have 3 wins and Scottie had all the seconds. Like, yeah, Scottie's been the best player this year. Did he have the best year? Not really in terms of the highest end wins that Wyndham Clark is going to have that. I was thinking, if Goddard won, could he throw himself into the mix? I say no. And the only guy that could really do it still is Cam Young, who literally no one is talking about anymore.
Cam Young could do it.
That's it. He's the only guy that could challenge for that title. Fitz was too bad in the majors.
Has the Masters champion, if he wins this week, done enough?
I think he would have had to win last week and this week because he just didn't play enough, and he didn't play enough, and he didn't do anything outside of the Masters.
He definitely didn't play enough. That's for sure. Which has got to be a big slight to him. I mean, he didn't even get to the requirement of 15 events.
That's fine.
That was another interesting side note today. That question was asked about Rory, and Brian Roloff said that, you know, we have rules and it's our job to enforce them. I've spoken to Rory about this several times, but going forward, we believe we've designed a competitive structure that would force people to have to play, and we don't have to have minimum rules.
I like that. I think that's great. Listen, guys should. One of the reasons why guys left for LIV, although it didn't turn out that way, was like, hey, I don't want to play golf every single week. And if this new, more condensed schedule, I think it allows people to take an off week here or there if they want the 3 weeks off, but you still have to play well enough to get to the end. Like, I think that makes the most sense.
Hey, the worst thing you can do. A quick anecdote, right? The worst thing in the world you can do at a country club. You belong to a club. You're up there. The worst thing you can do is have a food minimum, because all that does is tell your staff that you're like, hey, no matter what, everyone's going to show up and spend their $100 a month or whatever it may be. No, you need to get rid of that. You need to challenge people. So that's what they're doing here on the PGA Tour. They're saying, well, if you want to stay in this championship series, there's no more sponsors exemptions. you're going to need the points with which to be in that top 90. And if you don't have them, you're going to go back down to the beater tour and then go have fun doing that. Yeah, and so, like, I think that they're going about it. It goes back to that future mindset for TV products, so on and so forth. Driving those guys to want to show up because they have to show up to stay there is the proper way to do it, rather than saying, hey, you need a minimum of 15. I like that paradigm shift in thought.
We have that minimum at our club. It's a $500 per year drinks or food, which, it gets used.
Of course. But what you're telling the staff is that no matter what, people have to show up. If they remove that, all of a sudden there'd be a ton of pressure on the staff to actually have good food, good service, good drinks, all the above. Run good events. Like, just when you start to think about it culturally, they're shifting the mindset of the PGA Tour's culture here, right? There's been this community of, like, you look at the Champions Tour, like, guys can't get off. There's guys that are probably on that tour that have cards that are dead, Pat. You know what I mean? That are still, like, taking up spots. I mean, like, that's forever the way the PGA Tour has been. And this idea that there's going to be, like, real relegation and we start booting some people is going to put, like, light a fire under some people's ass. And that's what we want, because that leads to competitive chaos. At the end of the day, like a year or two ago, when Brian Roloff got up there and he gave his, like, 1,000 points of light, and he sat there and he said, hey, one of them was competitive parity. And the PGA Tour has that. And for the last few years, Scottie has won everything. And you wonder, you go like, well, do we really have competitive parity? Right now, we're having a conversation where there's, like, legit 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys with, like, 1 or 2 weeks to go in the conversation of player of the year. Like, that's good for the PGA Tour, in my opinion. And I think it's adding a lot to the swagger of this event this year, more so than it has in past years, where there have been starting strokes, or there have been all sorts of confusion. And it really was like, well, you know, like, we don't really consider this the player of the year anyway. The majors matter and blah, blah, blah. I think that there's some actual competition going on this week. And I think that's great for professional golf.
100%. But you can't, I mean, you can put systems into place to try to make that the end result, but you can't manufacture that drama, because we haven't had this sort of drama for player of the year in what? I can't remember the last time. Like, there was a Rory Scottie argument, I think, last year, and it was like, all right, it's one of those two guys. That realistically, I don't, if it was me, and even if Wyndham Clark comes dead last this week, it'd be hard to vote against him. He's had the most impressive wins, and that's really what matters, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I'm with Wyndham leading the way. You and I are in lockstep on that. I just think it's interesting that we finally might change the culture out here, and what I've been a part of for, decades in my life around golf. And I think that's a great thing. The idea that they announced this morning, and I get why they're doing it and everything, but that the tour knew enough to go out and in their outreach and to go grab LeBron's foundation and to make an event and include LeBron. The guy started a YouTube channel and it's got like 600,000 subs in a week. That says something. That's good for golf. And the idea that we're going to have this match play theater, which is almost reminiscent of, again, not manufacturing a creator classic, taking your own creators, which are the best players in the world, and pitting them head to head and giving this made for TV event is a good thing. That's learning from the current modern environment in golf. And I think those are great signs of the times.
You were speaking about the Champions Tour. What would be a great content idea? Maybe some of these guys just because they've passed through wherever that you've worked over the years and they're on the Champions Tour now. That these guys kind of like shoot off no matter what happens because they're old and they don't care. Get these guys in a room for like a weekly podcast about like what happened on the PGA Tour and just let them say whatever they want. It'd be big ratings.
The aggregators would have a field day for sure.
Old guys unfiltered.
Yeah, right. Tour talk. The golden year. What are those called?
No, we can,
Silver alert?
Yeah,
Silver alert. Tour talk.
Yeah, I think you'd get the most honest opinions about what's actually going on inside the ropes probably from those guys.
Definitely when it comes to the evolution of all of this.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I would enjoy something like that as a piece of content.
And we'll have NFL Films produce it, of course.
Oh, they just produce everything. It'd be perfect. No one and dones to talk about. Bad one and done year for me. How about you?
Wait, hang on. We're still talking about people that are playing this tournament.
I can't do the Patrick Cantlay thing. He's probably going to win. I can't do it.
No Xander Rory interest?
Rory, if I was gonna bet one guy this week, it would be Rory. Like if I just like, hey, I see it. I saw as high as 9.5 to 1. I see a 9 to 1 right now. If I just took all my money, like, do I want the 4 guys I have or Rory? I'd probably want. I mean, I want the 4 guys that I have, but for like a similar price point, I could see just being like, hey, I have $100 to bet this week. I'll bet it on Rory. That makes the most sense to me. I was thinking about playing the plus 160 Rory over Scottie head to head. While I do still have Scottie as the favorite in that matchup, the price discrepancy that I made versus what the price is not that large.
Yeah, there's some other fun markets to play with Rory, but there's not a lot of Xander love at a place that Xander loves. It's pretty interesting.
I don't know about that because I see his odds like I saw him down to as low as 9 to 1 in some spots.
Down here he was like
11,
12.
Yeah, I saw him up here and like maybe on international markets, I saw him open at 13 or 12 and get bet down to below 10 to 1. So I think that there is Xander love out there. But but you just talked about that guys come in, like you have back-to-back winners of this event. You see the form coming for the Tour champion. Xander has none of that.
I mean, the 2 starts before the BMW were much better. He had very little short game and putting last week. But it's just a place that in 8 starts, I think he's got 7 top 5s or top 4s.
So great top 10 bet. That's maybe that's why they killed his top, like his outright winning market was to kill the top 10. He's minus 140 for a top 10.
Oof. Woof.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Whereas Wyndham Clark is even money for a top 10.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
Yeah.
And Morikawa's plus 110. And he, as you mentioned before, like Morikawa was between Clark and Morikawa really for me on the betting card. And I did I watched 2018 at Eastlake. And I watched last year at Eastlake to relive that glorious Tommy win that I was on. That's one of the main reasons I'm betting Sam Burns, because it's essentially the Tommy Fleetwood playbook from last year that he just came so close so often, then he'll just get it done in the final event. Wouldn't that be glorious? But I went back and I watched 2 years ago as well when they still had the starting strokes and Scottie was just running away with it. He almost gagged it all back to Morikawa on Sunday.
Yep.
He made 3 bogeys in the first 8 holes and it got within 2. And I think he was up by like 8 or something coming into the round. And then he absolutely steamrolled Morikawa the rest of the time.
Well, Scottie's come in now the 5th year in a row, the leader in points. So 3 of those years would have been with starting strokes, and he's only won once.
This is his worst course, and he's won here, so but it's not like it's a bad course. But versus almost everywhere else, this has been the worst place for him.
This is one of the 2 places, and they're both in the playoffs, that I really wish would happen at the right time of year for this agronomy. This and Southwind would be much better golf courses if it was cooler, there wasn't as much storm activity, it wasn't as humid. I'd really love to see these guys play a full field event at this golf course. I guess like April would be the perfect time of year because that's when we go to Augusta.
Yeah, April or
like
May. Maybe instead of having the Zurich and the Bunny Ranch, you throw in St. Jude in Atlanta, and it's like, all right, this is pretty cool.
Skip the Valero, have the Coca-Cola Champ Series open here, and then you go straight down Route 20 over there to Augusta National, back-to-back weeks. Book it. That's what we got to do.
Okay, Keith, we're not getting rid of Valero, all right? It's one of my favorite tournaments. Do not get rid of Valero.
The Valero.
Yeah, I win bets at Valero. Do not get rid of it. Do not get rid of that or Houston. These are like the most successful tournaments we have.
You know what? If you think about your ringer card for wins, are there any spots, because you've done this for so long, are there any spots on the PGA Tour that you have not had an outright winner? Are there any venues that have vexed you for over 15 years?
I don't think that I have an open champion the entire time I've done this show.
Not one open champion.
I have everywhere else, I think. If I really have to go back and rack my brain, let's see. Century. I had Reed the year that he won, so that was helpful. Sony, I've had a bunch over the years. Pebble, I've had a bunch. Amex, I've had a few.
Waste Management?
Waste Management, I had Brooks. Brooks was here. The very first show I did was Brooks winning the Waste Management. So that was great at 40 to 1. Riv, I've had a few. I mean, I've had Bubba twice at Riv, so that was helpful.
Pebble?
Pebble, I had Phil the year that Phil won.
Heritage?
Heritage, I had Brennan Grace. Kadira won me $25K at Heritage, so that was fun. I keep saying that was fun. I probably shouldn't go through every single tournament. I don't think I've ever had the CJ Cup, although that's kind of new.
I had Pendrith there, 100-1. That was a good one. Thank you, Ben Coles.
I would like Ben. Poor Ben Coles. He gave you money, stole everyone's money this year.
Oh man, he's back to the Korn Ferry Tour. Get himself a card. He should do well there.
Yeah, well,
that's for sure.
Will we see the Korn Ferry guys in the fall swing? Is the Korn Ferry season done then?
No, they have 6 more events after the Tour Championship, which includes their playoffs, and then the top 20 get their card, and then the other guys get a chance to fight in the rest of the fall series for whatever they can get their hands on.
But like, if you're Blades Brown and you have essentially he'll probably have his tour card locked up before the playoffs because he'll be like one of those 20 and he won't be able to be caught. Do you then just play the fall series? Because he has so many FedEx Cup points to begin with that if you have like 2 or 3 good events, you could play yourself into signature status?
I think without a doubt he goes the Michael Brennan route and he jumps up there and gives it a shot for sure.
Well,
Brennan McCarty did the same thing, right?
Yeah. But McCarty was so far ahead on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's like, I might as well go take a shot.
Yeah. So you book it right now. Black Desert, Blades Brown wins right there. Timestamp that.
Okay, let's jot that. So we're going to take that week off of doing the show. The one course I went to this year, Black Desert, we won't even do a show on it.
The content's already done for that week. Yeah, we're good.
Anything else that we someone sent a viewer question. You can always send in your questions to mayomediainc@gmail.com. I thought this one was interesting because I had no real tips question for you this week. It would be
okay.
I mean, I do, but it involves like, how do I get my game back when it kind of goes, but I'm also like kind of drunk on the golf course because I have my Boys Ryder Cup coming up this weekend. I leave in 2 days. That maybe there just is no answer for that. Like, hey, Pat, why don't you stop drinking? It's like, well, no one's going to stop drinking. So you know how that goes. Anyway, here's the question. It comes from Craig, and he says, for this week's Final Word with Keith, can you have him do a segment on what he would do if he was Ludvig's coach and given the keys in an attempt to get him to that very top tier of player? What is Ludvig missing, and what would you try to teach him?
Ludvig doesn't score, right? So he doesn't maximize his rounds for his ball striking ability. So he hits the golf ball like a top 5 player in the world, and he scores like he's 50th in the world. When we see it week in and week out, he has these rounds where he's still driving it reasonably well. He strikes his irons very, very solidly, and then he doesn't score from 50 yards and in. I would take away all the clubs in his bag, but anything he would use around the green, and I would stick him there this entire offseason until that became a strength. I think if you did that with the level with which he could drive the golf ball, he would be like Rory.
Who is the opposite of that? Who does not hit the ball well yet somehow scores incredibly? Is that Denny McCarthy?
Well, no, not to that level. Now you're talking about somebody like somebody that doesn't hit it great. Well, like Gotterup. Gotterup's irons are all over the place all the time, and the guy scores.
Yeah,
like there's nobody tomorrow. The opposite of that would be Cam Smith. Cam Smith won the Players. I think what did he lose?
8 strokes driving?
8 strokes off the tee, and then he gained 12 with the putter. Like, at the end of this day, I don't know if I've ever broken this down for you before, but for anyone that's watching, listening, etc., if you want to lower your handicap, which essentially means you want to lower your average score, the first thing you need to do is that you need to get – well, you could do that. Yes, you could get pencils with erasers. You could do that. But at the end of the day, you need to attack the things that you can change. If you play 18 holes of golf, you have 18 tee shots. That's not going to change. So your score will always be 18. And then you're going to have, say you're playing a traditional par 72 scorecard, you're going to have 14 approach shots after that. So now that's 32 shots. If you play with 4 par 5s, that's 36 shots. Those shots have to take place. And you can sit there and argue, oh, Keith, what if I make a hole-in-one or whatever? Like, buddy, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that those 36 shots, you could write them on the card right now. Every time you go out, those exist. If you shoot 90, the difference between that 36 that are given and 90 strokes all happen around the green, in the bunker, from 100 yards and in, and with the putter. And if you don't change the way you play with those clubs, you will never change your score. So if you look at Ludvig, when he strikes the golf ball, he hits those 36 shots with tremendous aplomb. The guy's he's an exquisite ball striker. He's one of the guys on the range that I always stop for, and I'm like like Marco Penge and a couple others. I mean, there's Thomas Peters back in the day, Henrik Stenson, like just straight flushers of the golf ball. Like, man, just absolute vaporize the golf ball. You gotta love it. If you love golf at all, you love to hear that impact noise. I mean, Tiger back on the range at Isleworth in the day, it was appointment viewing, right? But what made Tiger great when he was blowing the driver all over the place is that he got the ball in the hole in the least amount of strokes. And people forget that premise of the game. Learn to score from 50 yards and in. Make that the strength of your game. Because no matter what, people say, well, Keith, if I hit my driver in the woods or whatever, that's fine. But if you then punch out and you're 75 yards from the hole, and then you miss the green, and then you 3-putt, really what happened there was that you could have saved bogey. And you could have minimized the number of strokes that you are playing. So I implore you to work on, in a Ludvig sense, to answer your question, Craig, and it's a very, very good question, is forget the 36 shots that are given. Work on the other ones. If you normally shoot 76, there's 40 of them. Can they be 38? Can they be 36? If you shoot 100, then there's 64 of them. Can that be 50? Next thing you know, you're shooting 86. But that's only going to change from the way you chip, pitch, and putt your golf ball. And it's not going to change from how you hit driver or how you hit your irons substantially. So there you go. There's my diatribe on that.
From a data perspective this year, so it's not the birdies that are the issue for Ludvig. To kind of what you mentioned, he's 9th in birdie or better percentage on the year. So yeah, he makes his birdies and he can pile those up. But then you start to look at the rest of his numbers versus the other guys who are elite birdie makers. Scottie, Blades Brown's actually 3rd. Wyndham Clark, Morikawa, Siwoo. Like he's in that mix along with Sam Burns. But then you start to take a look at his numbers, that his numbers more mimic kind of the crappier guys. Crappy being relative here. Like Will Gordon is 6th. Kevin Yu is also tied for 6th. Hayden Springer is up there as another one. And his numbers after the birdies start to look way more like those numbers rather than Wyndham Clark or Jake Knapp, another guy with a similar skill set who also makes a ton of birdies. Hell, even Keith Mitchell at that point. You know what Ludvig doesn't do? He makes relatively few eagles, which is really weird. He has a very high bogey percentage, a pretty high double bogey percentage, and you see his scoring opportunity percentage from inside either the percentage of shots he hits inside 5 feet, 10 feet, and 15 feet relative to everyone else. And it's kind of staggering. Like Wyndham Clark is 3rd in scoring opportunities inside 5 feet, 5th inside 10 feet. Ludvig is 127th and 111th. That's exactly kind of what you're talking about right now. And that's why the par 5 scoring has been down for him this year as well, that he can get himself greenside into and then he hits it nowhere near the hole.
I think the guy should be a par 5 machine, Pat. He should tear apart par 5s on any golf course he's on. 600-yard par 5 is not a problem for him. He drives at 340 on a rope. It's insane how good he drives it. Like, give me a pairing of him and Michael Brennan this week. You know, like something like that. It would be so much fun to watch. You know, Ludvig and Rory going toe to toe, like flying the ball 325 in the humidity down here. Just absolutely just. But Rory has a good short game, and Rory scores. And that to me is what has held him back at this point. You know, you look at the places that he's won. RSM, it was a wedge fest. So on approach, he just kept hitting everything. He got hot with the putter, and he goes 61-61 over the weekend. The guy was dialed in. He had a dreamlike week. But he goes and wins at a place like Torrey. Well, he's got such an advantage with the driver. He made a couple of putts on that Sunday, shoots 64, has a great back 9, and he jumps the field because everyone was kind of stuck on a U.S. Open venue. And the scoring was very congested. Like, if he could score from under 100 yards and in, he would separate himself from a lot of fields because he's already doing it with his long iron play and with his driver.
And it's the bogey stuff that really bothers me here. Because, you know, a straight up and down, you end up making par at worst, not that big of a deal. It's we see this happen over and over, whether it's in contention or not, is that when it starts going bad, it starts getting really bad. There's no, oh, Scottie made a bogey. Oh, he just bounced back and made a birdie immediately. Or he reels off 3 in a row. Or he makes some sort of miraculous shot to save everything. It's kind of like what happened to Spieth. Spieth spent years doing this, and then it stopped working, and then he wasn't good anymore. Obviously, Ludvig's on a much different level. And I think the Ludvig conversation is interesting because, like most of these places that we talk about, the first two things that we mentioned here is, hey, if you can be long and straight at Eastlake, it's going to be a huge advantage. Well, he is both of those things.
So he's automatically better than half the field, even if he doesn't chip and putt well.
Correct.
It's kind of like earlier. It's like what I was saying earlier about Morikawa and his iron game. His iron game is so elite, and it's proven that it's working right now. So he's trending with his irons that he can finish top 10 here because there's only 30 dudes here. Like you're talking about, like you don't have to beat a lot of guys, and there's easily 5 or 6 guys here that just aren't in good form, right? So now you're down to like 24 guys, and you have to beat like half those guys in order to finish in the top 10. And that's why the numbers are where they are. You know, I would love the opportunity to kind of, you know, mess with players like that and try to reconstruct like a little bit of their DNA. But I think that's what, you know, to answer Craig's question, that's what I would do. And I'd really have him not concentrate on the 36 shots. He's got those down pat, man. Like he needs to worry about the other, in his case, like the other 36 shots.
Well, that was a question for you, Keith. Do you, for one more time this year, have questions for me?
Well, there's going to be rapid fire in the fall.
Okay.
Right. Okay. But it might be football or other things related. That being said, one and done. Who are you left with?
All right. One and done's over. It ended last week.
Some people might need a pick.
You know what? They shouldn't be playing in those stupid leagues. They should be playing in the race for the Mayo Cup, which ended last week. FantasyGolfChampionships.com. No more one and done. Irrelevant.
Well, hey, and I appreciate your marketing magic. We will go with the rapid fire. Here we go. All right. Have you ever been to Atlanta?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was on my way home from Bonnaroo in 2009, I want to say.
Ooh.
Me, Cust, and our other friend Tim took a Greyhound from Manchester, Tennessee, through Chattanooga, all the way down to Atlanta, and it dropped us off in, say, a place that at this bus station that had a lot of pawn shops around. We were like, we got to get out of here at like midnight, and just not. I think I was 22 at the time. Just, you know, I had no money to steal, so that was helpful. But just very not a place I had been to a lot at that point in my life, Keith. You drop me off there now, I'm probably fine. But I was like, we got to get out of here. Let's get to a hotel.
Who headlined that 09 Bonnaroo?
Well, Bruce Springsteen headlined, but I went for Beastie Boys. It was their last ever show before MCA
You're a
died.
Beastie. You're a Beastie Boys fan?
Big Beastie Boys fan.
Oh my God.
Did we just connect?
I mean, we've connected many times, but it's another pod for another day. Incredible Beastie Boys fan. Jones Beach, Lollapalooza, so many shows. So good. Yeah. Miss MCA every day. All right, second question. Koivu or Thorbjornsen?
For the President's Cup team?
If you had to pick one of them, who would you put on the President's Cup?
Koivu.
Do you recall the last dream you had?
Nope. I do not.
You don't remember your dreams?
No.
I don't either, but I was just wondering if you're one of those people that does.
No, not me. My wife does. I don't.
Are you a good sleeper?
Sort of. When I'm out, but I wake up and then I'm up. So like if I fall asleep and somehow I get woken up, like I have to pee or something like that, I have a hard time going to sleep. Once I am asleep, it's not a problem.
Okay. What's your favorite memory from the Tour Championships at Eastlake?
Tiger in 2018. It's everyone's favorite memory. It's the only memory people have of this stupid tournament.
Hey. All right. Give me a venue for the first finale of the 2028 Tour Championship match play for the 16 guys. Give me, in your opinion, what do you think would be the most fun venue?
Whistling Straits would be a lot of fun.
Ooh, that was a good Ryder Cup match play venue.
Yeah, true. Chambers Bay.
Chambers Bay would be another good one, especially that time of year. That'd be a good time of year to go up there.
I think there's some venues that may have, Whistling Straits gets used over and over, but this Tour Championship or even the match play the week before could be a nice way, because you said LA Country Club is going to end up being on that list of venues that may have not covered themselves in glory the first time through, to give them another chance to see what's up. Erin Hills would be another one that, there was no wind that week. That sucks and made it kind of easy, but by all accounts, Erin Hills is an awesome course.
I saw your tweet earlier today about Taylor Pendrith. On a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to rate his future prospects for being a vice captain for the international squad.
Well, it's 10 out of 10. He is a vice captain for the international squad. So
is he going to be a good one? Is he going to be a bad one? Like, what are...
I don't know what vice captains do to begin with, but I don't quite understand how, out of anyone who's a part of the international side of golf, you're like, you know who we need is Taylor Pendrith, who might be on Korn Ferry next year.
When I read your tweet, I honestly thought it was like made up.
Like, Taylor Pendrith played so badly, he's not sponsored by CoolBet anymore. I'm sponsored by CoolBet.
That's an indictment right there. All right. Speaking of up there in Canada, tell me your favorite shot, most memorable shot, the most interesting, greatest shot or whatever from the Scramble recording last week.
Oh, I drove 16. That was fun. I haven't done that all year. I hit some. I couldn't hit an iron, I couldn't chip, but I could putt and drive. It's a very rare type of round for me, but it's good for a scramble round when you're making putts and you're setting everyone else up that they have some pretty easy shots in. Jeff hit this so it was none of my shots. Cust hit like 3 or 4 of the worst chips you will ever see that ended up going to like 2 feet.
Did he double hit any?
He didn't double hit any, but he thinned one so badly on one of the holes, it went between both bunkers, through the rough and just like rolled out towards the hole. I was like, all right, we're using that one.
I saw the one putt that you put on the video out, and you know it's bad when the player that hit it like shits on themselves before the other people get a chance to do it. You know, like he's like, oh, that's not good. You didn't even get a chance to yell something about it, or Jeff. And I thought that was, that was a telltale sign of what a quality shot it was.
Sure. I will tease that Jeff not only took one drive off the first tee, he walked back up after we all hit our drives. He's like, I got to hit another one to get right, and hit it worse. So that was fun.
Oh. I can't wait to see the outtakes then from this.
We'll get Jared to make a super reel of it. Now, once we start like finishing up some of these holes, that's another part of the membership tier at Mayo Media Network. We'll release some of those to members only before we're done the final cut, so they can get a taste of what's going on with some of this.
Who wins the Silver Cup this week, my friend?
Sam Burns.
Sam Burns. Well, I'm going with our winner from last week, Mr. Wyndham Clark.
As I now have money on him too, I wouldn't hate that.
All right. Take us away from the Tour Championship, my friend. It's been a pleasure being with you.
Keith Stewart. You can get him at readtheline.com. If you hit the description right now, you can get his newsletter. I suggest you go join it. Keith will be joining me next week for awards and every golf tournament during the NFL season, during the fall swing, to make sure that you don't miss a thing. And hopefully we can hit a winner this week, then go for 3 in a row and Asheville, North Carolina in 3 weeks' time. Wouldn't that be great? For me, my newsletter will come out on Wednesday. It'll have all the final picks, everything that you need to know about the tournament. And I mentioned that membership level. Highly suggest that you join it. Help support the show so we can fly Keith up next year and do some YouTube golf with him. It's for funding future, more interesting projects on the network. With viewers like you, we can make it happen, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!